I'm Maggie. I'm a licensed clinical psychotherapist with degrees in psychology, theology, and marriage and family therapy, a national certification in dialectical behavioral therapy, and a national certification in integrative mental health. In this video, I'm not looking to diagnose anyone. I'm only willing to offer insight into situations like these. Maggie Thompson is presenting the work titled The Book of Knowledge, The Keys of Enoch, written by J.J. Hurtak. Maggie Thompson is not validating nor supporting Hurtak's views, epiphanies, visions, beliefs, or words. Maggie Thompson is simply presenting the work as written and is attempting to translate this extraordinarily esoteric work to a common vernacular and understanding. Further, Maggie Thompson understands this work to be solely concerning the Abrahamic religions of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, and while Hurtak views his work to be the key or keys to uniting all the world's people under one religion, namely Abrahamic, Maggie Thompson does not support this premise whole cloth. However, this work does give depth and insight into the connection of physics, cosmology, biology, and spirituality, which, for the seeker of divine truth, can be invaluable for the discovery of one's place in the universe, and that may be under the hierarchy of Yahweh, the Ancient of Days, or a hierarchy that exists above or beside such deities, or none altogether. Maggie Thompson implores all seekers of knowledge to, letter A, not accept what a person of authority tells you without validation. This includes looking at critiques and the opposing views with an open mind. Letter B, accept that religion, as well as science and politics, is presented as a means of indoctrination and is always presented with the biases of the overall field or system, the authors of texts, and the presenter, whose goals are to convince you of the, quote, truth, end quote, of their premise or premises. Letter C. It is possible to take insight, truths, and information from a biased work. Any body of work for the purpose of deeper meaning and knowledge must be carefully excavated and carved to glean wisdom. And letter D. No work or bodies of work that is believed by a large group or populace of people should be dismissed out of hand simply because you do not believe it. We live in a diverse time where religious belief takes center stage in the governing of the collected masses. To truly understand the barriers and gateways to your personal success and fulfillment, you must accept that believers of any kind can and will do what is necessary to meet their goals.
All right, we're going to keep talking about the Book of Knowledge, the Keys of Enoch. This is part 22 about the Adam Kadmon. This is key 2-0-9, pages 253 to 259. So before we get into it, let's say hello to some people. Adric is here first. He says it's on. Auntie is here. Hi with the peace sign, my favorite auntie. Adric also says hashtag Pivot Point Wednesday. Adrian says, let's go. Leon's in the backyard working on his AC drain valve, so his hands are dirty, and I'm going to get my hands dirty during this live. Cosmic Surfer TV is here. Hello to you as well. Vincent is here. Hello, Vincent. And Addo Art and Design, good evening to you as well. And hello to you watching from the clouds. You can say hello. This is the best live tribe on YouTube. You will be welcomed. And shout out to the replay gang. So let's start. Okay, so this is what this key says. Okay. The keys to future history are given in the energies which revealed the divine word at the beginning of time, and in the energies which will reveal the quote, hidden divine word, end quote, and the end of consciousness time. The energies will shine as the brightness of the firmament and reveal the stars, for they are the same, the many and the one. Quote, the first Adam Kadmon, end quote. The image of Elohim is also the last Adam Kadmon. There's a few things that are wrong with that statement, but hey, we're going to use multiple concepts tonight, including Disney's TVA from the Loki series, because really seems like this divine hierarchy that Hertak is talking about. Hertak is the author of this work. Really feels like the hierarchy he's talking about is much like the TVA. So we're going to use them to make J.J. Hertak's excessively esoteric work a little bit not so teric. And I'll be critiquing his premises as well as offering some guidance, because it's become clear that this work is the pinnacle of the crossroad of Christian dispensationalism and Jewish mysticism. So I love this book even more now. So shout out to Adrian for getting it for me, because we can really break this down and know what these Christian dispensationalists are really looking for. Okay, so this key focuses on the Adam Kadmon. The full reading of this key is available on this channel. You can watch it before, after, or not at all. But if you want more information, it is there. So let's read some highlights. Ooh, just hit the computer. I'm all kind of frazzled. Also had a nosebleed right before this live. It's very dry here and there's stress. All right, so this key of Enoch tells us that the brain energies which were materialized at the beginning of the present consciousness frequency, our light life zone, will be the same energies that will reappear and reorganize our fields of consciousness materialization at the end of the present program as we are resurrected into new consciousness thought forms. Do you get it? That's his explanation. Makes total sense, right? Adrian said the book is better in your hands than in mine. Okay, so he goes on to say, the keys of Enoch are manifested between the first Adam Kadmon and the last Adam Kadmon. In the creation of the thrones and dominions of intelligent genesis and regenesis, the first body of light consciousness, which was used to create the program of starseed materialization, is also the same type of light body used to call forth a new life program at the end of the karmic cycle. Huh? Eddie's here. Oh, Eddie. Okay, so, but let's talk Adam Kadmon. So we have a strong foundation for listening to this key, because what exactly is an Adam Kadmon? Catching up with the Joneses is here. Good evening to you as well. The term Adam Kadmon, oh, for anybody new, I always have notes. That's what I hit the computer with. So when you see me looking down or reading, it's my notes that I'm reading. I don't want to have a squirrel moment and wander off, although sometimes that's kind of fun to do. Anyway, the term Adam Kadmon originates in Jewish mysticism. Okay, so this is like original Judaism. That's where mysticism is. It's almost like mystics, magic, that kind of stuff. Ancient Judaism. Okay, so the term Adam Kadmon originates in Jewish mysticism, specifically from Kabbalistic traditions. So there is a work called the Kabbalah, and you've heard Hertak reference it before. It's spoken of in the Lurianic Kabbalah, written by Isaac Luria in the 16th century, so the 1500s, right? Isaac Luria lived in Safed, which is now northern Israel. Okay, so he's the one who originally talked about Adam Kadmon. Okay, so Adam Kadmon simply means first man. He's not the biblical Adam. That's not what they're talking about. He's the archetype of the divine man. He's the divine masculine. Okay, we hear all about that nowadays. The divine masculine. Okay, so in Gnosticism, this is the primordial blueprint of man that all men are based on. So, same thing as an archetype, right? Okay. So, biblical Adam is the closest to Adam Kadmon because he's the first one that was made. Okay. The Adam Kadmon is the blueprint, is the divine masculine, is the perfect masculine. Adam being the first, biblical Adam being the first one made. Okay. But the biblical Adam is definitely not perfect. Okay. In fact, in the Hebrew tradition, Adam is kind of a F up. So we'll talk about it. Okay. So first, this is Hebrew tradition. Okay. First, Adam and Lilith together are made from the same clay and the same breath together at the same time. Okay. The first thing that Adam does is say, I get dominion over all of this. Now submit to me and drop your drawers because we're having sex. That's the first thing Adam says to Lilith. He sets the boundaries immediately. Everything is mine. You submit to me and I'm having sex with you right now. That's the first thing Adam does. Okay. Lilith says, reminds him, right? Or made out of the same stuff at the same time, bro. And she pieces out. Bye. I don't need to have anything to do with any of this. Adam goes on this really big whine fest, whining to God because his ego is bruised. I mean, he's literally whining. Okay. So God sends angels after Lilith, which pissed her off. Okay. She is the one who curses Adam and his kids and refuses to come back. So, side note, how did the first human female defy God if he's all powerful? In fact, if he's omniscient, why didn't he just know that they both were going to act that way? But that's kind of I digress. So then Jewish mysticism demonized Lilith, and much like they do with every female in history, they conflate her with the demon that causes sudden infant death syndrome and miscarriages. There was already a demon that did that, but because everybody decided to be mad at Lilith for peace out, they said they're about the same thing, right? Because she hates children, right? She doesn't hate children. She hates Adam. So God says, all right, Adam, I'll make you a girl from your rib. So she will be subservient from the start. And that is where we get Eve. And we get that story of subservience, right? But that's not how it's written in the Old Testament. It's just Hebrew tradition. Okay, so remember, that is their explanation of the creation of woman, was that Adam whined so much, they gave him a subservient woman, but Lilith was still out there doing her thing. Okay, so now, if we talk about the tree, right? Eating the apple from the tree. So let's talk about the tree. All right. Adam knew the whole time that God didn't want him or Eve to eat from the tree of knowledge. He knew the whole time. God told them both at the same time, right? Correct me if you think I'm wrong. I'll give you biblical quotes. So God tells both of them at the same time, hey, don't eat from the tree of knowledge. Okay. So the interesting thing that nobody ever talks about is that Adam was there when the serpent was there. He was there, standing there during the conversation that Eve had with the serpent. Okay. Genesis 3:6. And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, right? Then she took of the fruit thereof and did eat, and gave also unto her husband with her. With her. And he did eat. So he's standing there watching the conversation between Eve and the serpent, and the serpent's like, hey, God doesn't want you to know that you're naked because he's kind of a creeper. So why would you not want to have knowledge, right? Adam's watching this whole exchange. Eve's like, yeah, you're probably right. She takes a bite. She hands it to Adam. He takes a bite, right? Everybody blames Eve. They were both there. It says, and gave also unto her husband with her. With her, right? He was there. He heard the serpent and he said nothing, right? He let her eat the fruit. Yeah, that was her decision, of course. But then he ate the fruit. Okay, so he's definitely not perfect. Leon, quit trying to type on your phone with dirty hands. So Leon says, Adam likes women on their back, while I like women. Keep it PG, Leon. He said, but Adam is boring and Lilith is bored. Adam is a lame. Yes. Yes. That's kind of the tradition, right? So when they get caught, so it doesn't even stop there. When they get caught, again, omnipresent, omniscient, how do they get caught? Didn't God see the whole thing happening? Anyway, when they're caught, right? Because he notices they put fig leaves on because he's a creepo and likes to watch everybody run around naked and be dumb, right? No knowledge around here. We like the dumb ones. So when they're caught, Adam blames Eve and even blames God. So the first thing he says is, the woman you gave me, like, it's your fault, God. You gave me this woman and then she made me eat it. That's in Genesis 3:12, right? He was the one with dominion. Remember? He wanted a subservient woman because he wanted dominion over everything. He wanted to be in charge of everything. And then when they get caught, he says, well, the woman you gave me, she made me eat the apple. Okay. And then everybody believes it forever and ever. Right. So he wasn't guarding, he had dominion over the garden and wasn't guarding it. Okay. So first of all, the snake gets in, right? It was infiltrated. He was given this submissive woman and he didn't protect her. I'm not saying it's all his fault. She made the decision, right? Some men to this day will say that women are to submit to man and then blame her for eating the apple. Which is it? You have to pick one. Okay. Submissive is submissive, right? Submissive requires responsibility. Naivete is inherent in submissive, right? Either I'm authentically submissive, which means maybe I'm a little naive, maybe I'm a little innocent, maybe I do what I'm told, right? That is submissive. It requires responsibility, right? You can't say submit to me, but be dominant with everybody else. That's not authentic. And that wasn't why Eve was made. In this story, in the Hebrew tradition, that wasn't why Eve was made. Eve was made to be submissive. So you get what you ask for. Lilith might have said something totally different to that serpent and might have done something totally different to that serpent, but you got Eve because you wanted submissive. Okay. So there's an older, says Lilith's got a ticket to ride. Okay. So there's an older, much older, possibly original story of the first man. Okay. I'm not real happy with the Old Testament and Hebrew stories of Adam or Lilith or Eve, honestly. Okay. None of those are super great. And none of those are any archetypes we want to base ourselves on. So if we look at this kind of original story of first man, we get Adamu. Name sounds familiar, right? Adamu, the grandpa of Alulim, is the first king of Earth, according to this tradition, right? So Adamu has children, offspring, okay? And then Alulim is the first king, right? He's the first man given dominion on the earth, okay? So they are in a perfect garden called Iridu, right? So Eden, right? Iridu. This story is much older, by the way, than the Torah or the Old Testament or any of the thousands and thousands of years older. So Iridu was created by the god Enki. Okay. Alulim is the first name on the king's list. Okay. So Alulim descends from Adamu, Adamu, Adamu. Okay. So Adamu being the archetype. Okay. And Alulim descends directly from him, and he is a king. We like him already. Okay. His reign was before the Great Flood. Okay. So it was written about across numerous ancient civilizations. Okay. He reigned a very long time, a very long time. And just like other ancient texts, just like Genesis, people lived much longer before the flood and a lot shorter after the flood. Okay. So after the cataclysm, the king's list starts over. Okay. So on the king's list, it starts with the gods, the Elohim, the sons of Anu, the Anunnaki, the sons of Anu, right? And they are the kings. The first king of earth that descends from a human is Alulim, who is in Adamu's line. Okay. Vincent's talking about the Egyptian Book of the Dead and the Lamb's Book of Life. Yeah, add a Mesopotamian influence and entities. You knew right where it was going. Leon says Lilith's story was purposely added to for the arguments that her story is not canon and is pure mythology. Isn't it all? Right? Like, a human had to write this stuff down, right? So after the cataclysm, the king's list starts over. So I can go into more detail, but the king's list was stolen. Why? Well, possibly because it's a list of Black kings that ruled the world for hundreds of thousands of years. I mean, you tell me. Let's look at the timeline. Okay, we're going to look at the timeline of the king's list, right, of things that we know. From the 1990s to the early 2000s, right, we start finding more sub-Saharan DNA in Mesopotamian remains, meaning Black. Okay. There are high melanin markers in skeletal remains from Sumer and Elam, which is Iran and Iraq now, right? Sumer and Elam. Statues and steles have African features, woolly hair, broad noses. We're getting all the information that these ancient Mesopotamians were sub-Saharan Black, okay? Then, for whatever reason, I don't know, it's pure coincidence, we start looking for weapons of mass destruction in that area. Even though, if you look into, there was no evidence ever of weapons of mass destruction, but we went on this whole tirade of searching for weapons of mass destruction, right? So you tell me why we were looking for weapons of mass destruction in the National Museum of Iraq in Baghdad. Okay. That museum was looted and desecrated by Western troops. Western troops went in while we're looking for weapons of mass destruction. They had to go to the National Museum. They looted stuff, tore stuff up. They destroyed things. They confiscated, stole, right? Cuneiform tablets on Enki, Inanna, and Gilgamesh. And somehow the Sumerian King's List tablets are just missing now. We don't know where they went. We don't know. Yeah, we took all that other stuff. It's in the British Museum now. But we don't know where the king's list went. I don't know. Maybe one of our troops stole it. I mean, we're not going to look for it or try to figure it out or, try to figure out who stole it or anything like that. Just oopsie doodles, right? So, one more strike in destroying anything that challenges the Western myth of white beginnings. Because that probably is a weapon of mass destruction, but it's not nuclear, okay? So, and now Israel is fussing with Iran, right? Why? Because they want greater Israel, yes, but what are they securing beyond resources? Adrian says, devil's advocate. Don't we have a tradition of raiding centers of culture during wars? We had an entire art division back in World War II. I don't necessarily think that's devil's advocate. I think it's the same thing. I think anytime that we go to war with another country, we are going to loot and steal and take culture stuff. But remember, when we were looking for weapons of mass destruction and they allowed the groups in to see that there's no weapons of mass destruction, they were specifically there to be searching for weapons of mass destruction. This wasn't boots on the ground and everybody's fighting and stuff gets looted and da-da-da-da. That group was literally supposed to be looking for weapons of mass destruction, and they looked for it in the museum and took all that stuff. So that's one. But colonizers, from the beginning of colonizing, have always stolen the culture so they can rewrite the history. Right? So it's the same thing. Why would they steal a king's list of a bunch of black kings and hide it? For the same reason they stole every culture. It's the same story over and over and over again. It's his story, right? Right? The victor writes the story. Okay. So the flood story, the Eden story, and kingship theology originated in Black Sumerian spiritual systems, right? For some, we know we're part of that original lineage. And we know there's not some arbitrary fake line between black and white. It's family, it's lineage. That's what it is. This is where humanity started, okay? For others, they know that it's not their history, and that's intolerable for them because for some reason they want to make history, all history of everyone, about them, okay? So let's go a little bit deeper. If we talk about Mesopotamia being, and Sumer being black. Abraham of the Bible, Abrahamic religions, by the way, this is where we get Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Abraham came from Ur of the Chaldees, okay? It was a Sumerian city. He came from Sumeria. Abraham was black, okay? Moses was raised by a black pharaoh. Okay, that's been proven by DNA. Okay, there's 3 different pharaohs that could have been pharaoh during the time of Moses. All 3 of them by DNA black. Okay, so Moses was raised by a black pharaoh who was supposedly his grandpa. Remember, because the whole going down the Nile thing. So he had the black pharaoh grandpa and Pharaoh's black daughter, because Pharaoh's black, daughter's black, right? So everybody thought Moses was her son, which means what? Moses was black. Or else people would say, whose goddamn white baby is that? So, sorry, I tried. So since everybody thought, since we've proven with DNA that they were all black, and everybody thought that Moses was Pharaoh's daughter's son, that means he was black, right? Not only that, he was actually Hebrew, meaning the Hebrews were black because of Moses is actually Hebrew and not in Pharaoh's lineage. And Moses is black. then the Hebrews are black. Okay? It's just history. It's okay. If this feels a little funny to you, just breathe a little bit. It doesn't mean it's not you. Okay? It's okay for origin stories to be black people. It's okay. Just breathe. Jesus's genealogy traces through those specific Afroasiatic tribes. So what does that say about Jesus, who was described as having copper-colored skin and woolly hair? Whiteness as a thing is not that old. So it wouldn't have been talked about in the Bible, okay? It wasn't widespread 2,000 years ago. It just wasn't. So, white people weren't the center of attention. Okay? So maybe Adrian, that baby is a Viking from the Caucasus Mountains. Yes. You knew exactly what I was going for. So maybe the King's List and the cuneiform tablets were really weapons of mass destruction after all. Because it could really bring something down. And maybe that was a bigger threat to the United States than nuclear weapons that there was no evidence of and that they never found. So, tangent. Let's keep going with the highlights. I only read 2 of them. All right. The scripture of light continues in 1546. He's talking about in Corinthians. Nevertheless, the first is not that which is spiritual, but that which is physical, afterward, that which is spiritual. So he's talking about your body, right? Like you have a physical body, you have a spiritual body, right? And the order in which they come, essentially being reborn, right? Being born again. You are born of a physical body, and then you're born of a spiritual body, which in Corinthians brings you back to your physical body, which we never talk about that. So for this born again thing in Corinthians, a lot of what they're talking about, it doesn't just sound like born again or rebirth. It also kind of sounds like red pill. It sounds like awakenings. That's the meaning of that verse, right? In Corinthians. Just like the Buddhists say, if you meet Buddha on the road, kill him. That's what the Buddhists say. Okay. It's not what I say. But they say that because your spiritual path and your way to enlightenment is individual and personal, and you don't need a teacher. You don't need a Buddha. If anybody's trying to guide your path and tell you where to go to get enlightenment, they're wrong. Kill them. He doesn't mean actually kill people, okay? This is the path to enlightenment. Okay, so Adrian says, same reason why Putin threatened to show the world the art showing the Black popes and other religious people, and all the information about Tartaria, which I showed at the video at the end in Sunday's Hamite show. That's some of the info that Putin has, is the real history of Tartaria. Okay, so, which they used to always say was a made-up thing. They used to always say Tartaria, Atlantis, and Lemuria were all made up. Now we're finding out Tartaria was actually a thing. We're also finding out that Atlantis may actually be referring to a pre-flood tribe in Africa who was ruled by King Atlas. So, maybe these things they say are myths actually are not myths at all. So, that's actually what Corinthians means. It means don't listen to people tell you how to become spiritually enlightened. If you have questions, when you're seeking advice, that's one thing. But if somebody's telling you what you have to do, get them off your path. Okay, so number 18. For this reason of glorifying our universe in the image of the universal light of the Father, the office of the Christ was established to overcome the creations of the which fell out of the Father's grace through a glorious Prince of Light,
who took the Father's love and created his own throne and dominion in the image of himself, Lucifer, which he misspelled, and instead of ER at the end, he put UR, so the okay? The which sought honor and dominion first and love second. Now, remember when I said where Abraham is from? It's from a town called UR. Okay, but I just told you they were, and then he's saying they fell from grace and they're back. Okay, so Abraham himself is from okay, and her talk is all about the Abrahamic, especially Jewish mysticism and Christianity, right? But then he talks about creations of the and equates it to Lucifer, spelled incorrectly. Now, the word in Hebrew just means light, okay? So there's a good and I guess there's a bad That's clear as mud. I don't know. It's kind of like this where Lucifer is referred to as the morning star and Jesus is referred to as the morning star. I mean, the, not the morning star. So clear as mud. All right. So 22. He says, however, it is very difficult for man in the lower worlds to recognize the fallen entities which appear as the light. Therefore, no one is to ascend to other worlds by instruction from any entity unless he receives the revealed vibration of the Father's name, and unless he is commissioned to work with man, woman, and child as the Holy Trinity in fulfilling all of the gifts belonging to the Holy Spirit, for Jesus warns us that false Christs will arise. So you can't do it unless we tell you to do it. Right? You have to have our permission. It's starting to sound like Adam. So if another God tells you that you can do all of this ascension stuff that her talk is talking about, the transcendence, all of this, all on your own, which is what Jesus said, by the way, he's saying, don't listen to them. They're bad. If they tell you you have the ability and the power and everything to do it all yourself, they're bad. But isn't it always liberation and wisdom that gets demonized first? Always. Jesus, the Christos, right, taught not to follow the dogma. He said, don't follow the rules. That each person could reach God on his own and have a relationship with God. That we did not need ritual and rites, especially because it's a grift. That's what Jesus talked about. This her talk version sounds like a Sadducee Jew. It really does, in Christ's clothing. Okay, so let's keep going. Number 30. All right. Now, therefore, whoever is worthy, let him receive the mysteries and enter into the light of the Adam Kadmon. Also, let those who laugh understand that they may remain aliens to the mystery of the kingdom. Don't laugh. Why did that make me want to laugh? Like, as soon as somebody says, if you laugh at me, you don't get to be in my clubhouse. It just made me want to laugh. It's silly. Okay, so, I mean, fine. We can figure it out on our own. Okay, so I think what her talk is laying out is the illusion of cosmic order, right? It's a religious-based psychological prison, okay? Her talk claims that a divine hierarchy governs evolution through sacred laws that they made up, okay? Mind you, all right? In Loki, we see Loki expose divine hierarchies as just the king sphere, right? King's or Kang's fear of chaos or lack of control, okay? Hey, Vincent, allow other people to make comments too. Slow down a little bit. So it's the wizard in the Wizard of Oz, okay?
In Gnosticism, the demiurge, Yaldabaoth, right, fully believes he is the creator. He doesn't know that there's another creator before him, right? And he proves it through control. See, if I can control you, then I'm the strongest, right? If he feels the reins slipping, he enforces control in the name of glory. So look, the human mind does crave order. We do like order. So people often project divine authority onto the universe. We create deities, okay? Freud said God is the cosmic father figure, the father figure, okay? When things feel out of control or unfair, we just say, well, God works in mysterious ways. So we blame God and we say he just works in mysterious ways, okay? These hierarchies are promotion scams, okay? Mobius in the Matrix is told to serve faithfully so he can get his I'm not in the Matrix. At the TVA, Mobius in the TVA, not Morpheus. Mobius in the TVA is told to serve faithfully so he can get his past back, right? Hertalk says, follow the keys and you'll ascend the spiritual ranks, right? You'll get promotions. So we're told to suffer on earth purposefully, sometimes to get a reward in heaven. It's a carrot on a stick, right? It's kicking the can down the road just to get compliance out of people, out of control. Well, you'll suffer now and you'll get your reward in heaven. So it makes me think of Nietzsche's statement, God is dead, and that it applies here. Not because divinity doesn't exist. Okay. If you were to ask me, I would say, I believe that it does. Okay. But that statement fits because any system claiming to be God's representatives has to be lying. Because any all-knowing, all-seeing, creative God would not need representatives on earth. And since we are supposedly imperfect compared to God, we would never be good representatives of God. So this is how this divine hierarchy programs people. So gaslighting, right? You are flawed. You need us. You need correction. You need salvation. And we're going to tell you how to do it, right? Climb the ranks and you'll be free. But you're never free because the higher you get on the rungs, you become an elder, you become a pastor, you become, a bishop, you're farther and farther in. So you're never free. And then they say, without us, reality is just going to collapse. Like everything will go to hell. Satan will take over. The devil wins. They say all these things, playing on fear and making us afraid of everything, including and especially God. Why do they want to make us afraid of God? Not a healthy fear out of respect, even, or a healthy knowledge of that power, but they really, really want to make us afraid of God because he will mess you up quicker and more brutally than the devil ever could. And we know it. We've read the Old Testament. We know what he can do. So, because they took this word out of the Bible, I'm going to say it again and again. Liberation is the only key that we need to know. Sylvie chose to burn it all down in the TVA. The Buddhists say to kill Buddha. Jesus turned over tables in the temple. True psychological freedom comes when you stop asking for permission to exist. That is liberation. So, what does all that mean? Adamo. We can just look at Adamo and realize that the Adam of the Bible wasn't it, that story was just out of control. So spiritual liberation, psychological liberation is where it's at. thank you guys for listening tonight and for allowing me to go off a little bit on a tangent. I appreciate you. This coming Sunday, we're going to be talking about the fish people, which is extraordinarily common in ancient mythology and modern Catholicism, but it's something nobody ever talks about, the fish people. It's very odd. So we're going to talk about the fish people. It's not actually people made out of fish or fish made out of people. It's the fish people. We're going to talk about them this Sunday, continuing in the Bloodline series. And then next Wednesday, we'll keep going with the Book of Knowledge, the Keys of Enoch. I hope you all have a good Wednesday. And I'm going to show you a picture of my dog. Please like the video if you haven't already. It really helps the algorithm to know what kind of things you like. Share where you think it's appropriate, especially to someone who you think needs to hear it. And don't forget to check out some of the wilder Pivot Point Wednesday shows. And last, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, especially if you want to break down complex concepts that make the esoteric not so teric, helping you on your journey to become your most authentic self. By subscribing, you'll join a community that thrives on curiosity and growth, and you'll never miss out on insights and some wild discussions. Let's uncover the universe together.